Hello everyone, welcome back. So we're back here with another educational video. And like I said last time, we're going to be doing scuba diving this time. I will not say that I am a professional scuba diver. I'm recreational and I go about once a year, but I am certified. So some of these things might not be the most, I guess, correct, like absolutely correct, but for basics and whatnot, I think that's perfectly fine. This is what I understand most of the stuff to be from being a scuba diver for I've been a couple years now. So, anyways, let's go ahead and start on. So first, real quick like description, I guess, of scuba diving. So scuba diving is a mode of underwater diving where divers will use breathing equipment, which is the scuba tank. Now, SCUBA is an acronym for a self-contained underwater breathing apparatus, which was coined by Kristen J. Lambertson in his patent, which was submitted in 1952. So it's been around for quite a while. And scuba divers carry their own source of breathing gas. That's kind of because of the breathing apparatus and whatnot. And it's usually a type of compressed air, which we'll go over the three kind of main types of compressed air that they use. So, most of this video is going to be going over the equipment for scuba diving, and we're not going to go everything scuba diving. This is like a bare bones, like top of the iceberg kind of thing, where we're not going to go super in depth about most things, but we're just going to kind of give a general view of it. So here is some of the equipment that I have to talk about. And I have a picture here that has like most of these and whatnot. Like we have weights, we have the breathing apparatus, diving regulator, buoyancy control device, which is the BCD, diving masks, diving suit, rebreather, gas mixtures, swim fins, or flippers, I guess you could call them, dive propulsion vehicles, and dive watch or dive computers. A few of these I have not actually had to use. So I have not used a rebreather, and I've only used a regular like oxygen for a gas mixture. Uh, but I have used some of the more general stuff. So let's start out with the different scuba types. So there's two main different scuba types. One is open circuit, and then there's closed circuit. So open circuit is one that I've used. Okay, open circuit is basically you breathe in the air from your tank, and then it goes out into the like as bubbles out of your regulator, and yeah, it just gets exhaled into the environment and occasionally into another item or equipment. So sometimes you can use your oxygen or your air to fill up your BCD to inflate. But mostly we're just going to be talking about like just the breathing in, you're using the oxygen. So the second form is, like I said, closed circuit, which are rebreathers. So rebreathers, closed circuit rebreathers, or semi-closed circuit rebreathers, they process all the parts of your exhaled breath. So you breathe in, and then when you breathe out, the oxygen will be reused, and then also the carbon dioxide will be removed and then replaced with more oxygen. So you're using up less stored gas volume. So you can stay underwater longer, you're using less oxygen, and it's just better. Carbon dioxide scrubbers are what you kind of like take out the carbon dioxide from your breath. So the scrubber is filled with a CO2 absorbent material, most likely a strong base. And that's usually like soda lime, which is calcium hydroxide, and then also potassium hydroxide or sodium hydroxide. Those are kind of like the, I guess, more normal ones. Then if you're like really worried about the mass of stuff, so like for space station kind of stuff like that, whenever you're sending stuff into space, lithium hydroxide and lithium peroxide are a lower mass alternative. And they don't get used as much unless you're really worried about how long you're going to be staying underwater. So here we have the dive regulator. So this is a real like easy, normal one that most people use. It's a pressure regulator that contains the pressure of the breathing gas oxygen. So basically, this one tube goes into the oxygen tank, and that will be what supplies you oxygen. So, like I said, it attaches directly to the air tank, and it's a single hose open circuit scuba regulator. So it has a mouthpiece and also a pressure regulator. So here on the screen, let me go ahead and so you can see. So this right here, the like neon yellow, that is one of the mouthpieces, and then the black one here is another mouthpiece. Uh, Either one of those is one that you can use, and then I think usually it would be the black one is the one that you would use. The neon one is a spare mouthpiece, just in case, let's say, yours messes up, or possibly your buddy or someone else you are diving with also messes up. So you can hand that off to someone else, and you just have to swim nearby, and they can use your oxygen too. Which it will use more oxygen, of course, since there's two people using it. Then also we have our pressure gauge here that will show how much oxygen you have, and also might show your depth and whatnot. So that is one of the things that we're going to be talking about here. Then also we have our BCD. So our buoyancy control device here, or BCD, also known as, is used to establish neutral buoyancy underwater and positive buoyancy at the surface. So what we mean by neutral buoyancy is whenever you're underwater, like you have all this equipment on you, and also you have a weight belt on you to keep you underwater. So neutral buoyancy is where you just stay at the exact same place underwater. So you don't go up, you don't go down, you're basically buoyant whenever you have a breath in. And positive buoyancy is you're floating up. So you can control it to adjust the volume of gas inside the inflated bladder. So if you look on the picture in the middle here, there is a red button on the thing that looks like a bendy straw. There is a red button there, and that red button will inflate your regulator, or your BCD. And then there is a button at the very top of that that will deflate it. So that's what you're going to be used to establish your either neutral buoyancy or positive buoyancy. And you can also do fine buoyancy adjustments by how much breath, like how deep of a breath you control, or just like you can control it by your breath. So if you take a deep breath, you might go up a little bit more. If you take a more shallow breath, you could go down. And that's how you kind of use, like you'll use your BCD and also your breathing to control where you are at in buoyancy wise. And we have a picture of a deflated one here, and then we have to my side here a inflated one. So masks. Masks, I mean, I guess they let you see underwater. So, I mean, they're a pretty important thing there that don't really let you breathe or keep you afloat or anything, but I would say they're pretty important. Masks let you see underwater. They can also be, for me, with glasses, you can put custom corrective lenses, can be bonded onto the mask, which I do not really have a problem when I'm underwater. Like, I cannot see things very, very far away, but it seems like whenever I'm underwater with the mask, I can see better. So some people might not need it, some people might. Exhale through your nose to equalize the internal pressure in your mask with the surrounding water. So you do not want to be breathing through your nose because you're going to have your regulator in. You want to be breathing through your mouth. But your mask, as you go deeper and deeper, and also while you're coming up, the pressure will be different inside your mask. Because the farther you go down, the more compressed air becomes. The higher you go up, the less compressed it is. So sometimes you'll have to exhale through your nose a little bit to equalize the pressure inside your mask. Now, if you fail to equalize, the pressure inside the mask may lead to a form of barotrauma, which is known as mask squeeze. And I kind of had that happen during my initial certification. It didn't go bad, but it started to, and then I had to like stop for a second, pressure like equalize, and then I was good. But it is not one of the things like whenever it starts to happen, you know, like it's kind of starts to hurt, and you just need to stop, equalize, and keep going. Masks will tend to fog up when your breath, like if you breathe out in there, exhale into your mask, it will cause fogging and stuff like that. Now, to prevent the fogging, many divers will spit into your mask and then like wipe it around, and that is because the saliva residue allows the condensation to wet the glass, and it'll form a film instead of making fog on it. So, and there are several commercial products that can be used as an alternative to saliva, but a lot of the people I do like have seen and I did my certification with just use saliva. Now, there are two types of masks we're going to be talking about. One is the regular half mask that it basically just covers your nose and eyes. And then there's the full mask, which covers your full face. So here we have the two different masks. I will move myself over a little bit more. So anyways, we have the half mask, which is easier to clear out of water. So if you get water in your mask, you just press up on the very top, like on your forehead, and you press up on it and breathe out through your nose, and it will clear the water. And it's also cheap and pretty reliable. So you always kind of want to carry around a half mask, even if you do have a full mask, just in case. Because if you get a full mask, if water gets in your full mask, you kind of just got to take it off, what I understand. Full mask has increased breathing security because it's always attached to you. So if your mask is on and there's no water leaking in, you have air, like you can breathe. There's space for equipment that lets you communicate, so there can be a communicator inside there, so you can talk to other divers that are down there, which is kind of cool. Also, it gives you face protection from the cold and polluted water. So if you're somewhere really cold or somewhere with polluted water and you don't want the water touching your face or anything like that, or breathing it in at all, then it's pretty good. And we just have the pictures of the half and full mask there. I've only used a half mask. I've never used a full mask. I think I like the half mask better. So, suits. Okay, suits are one of these that most people just use a regular wetsuit. So, why do you wear a suit? So, suits are worn to provide, first of all, and most important to me, thermal protection. Thermal protection, it just helps you stay warm underwater. Now, in tropical waters, if you're especially near the surface, you don't need as much thermal protection. But anyways, it provides thermal insulation, protection from abrasions, so like rubbing up against rocks or stuff like that. Also, ultraviolet exposure, so exposure from the sun, getting sunburns, and also stings from marine organisms while you're swimming around. Also, it just gives you extra buoyancy and helps you float a little bit better. It is extremely easy to float on the surface of the water when you have a wetsuit on. Like if you cannot float without a wetsuit and you throw a wetsuit on, I can guarantee you could probably float. But yeah, my most important thing is thermal protection and also protections from abrasions, stuff like that. Of course, the sunburns and stuff like that, and marine organisms too. But if you don't get close to them, you don't have to really worry about it. Like I said, the types are wet suit. There's a semi-dry suit, and then there's a dry suit. Now, I'll be honest with you, I do not understand semi-dry. I don't understand it. But we have at the top here, we have a wetsuit, okay? It lets water in and it will keep you somewhat warm, but water, of course, is touching you at all times. Then we have the semi-dry suit, which I can only guess it keeps some of your pieces dry and other places it lets water in, which that would be, I guess, a half dry, half wet, which is semi-dry. Then we have the dry suit, which I get very, very cold whenever I scuba dive. Like, I wear a wetsuit basically all the time when I dive. When I did my certification, we did it inside a pool that they kept cool for people that were like swimming and stuff, and I was freezing. I did not want to swim any much more than I had to. So a dry suit sounds wonderful. Dry suit, you're completely dry. You don't have to worry about water touching you, stuff like that. and it's just wonderful. It sounds like. Now, suits again. Wetsuits will allow water to enter the suit. Dry suits prevent any water from entering. Wetsuits come in different thicknesses depending on the water temperature, so you can get a higher thickness in case you're like me and you get cold, or you can get a less thick one if you're going to be in more tropical waters and you don't need really anything to keep you warm. Dry suits are typically more expensive and more complex. That's why you have to do like a training with them. I have not done that, and I probably won't, but who knows. Plus, you need to add and reduce air inside there to remain buoyancy. So, kind of like your mask, you need to equalize your like suit. So, your suit or whatever, you'll need to add and reduce air and everything like that. Kind of like your BCD, kind of like your mask, everything like that. So, it's a little bit more complex. So, now let's get into some of the air types. So, not all air is made equally. So, there is like the regular air that like we breathe and stuff like that. They compress that down and put that into some tanks. There is also three other types other than like the normal air. So, we're going to go over first enriched air. So, enriched air is also known as nitrox. It's popular due to the reduced nitrogen intake during long and repetitive dives. So whenever you go underwater, you're breathing in nitrogen. It can bubble up in your body, and if you do not come up slowly and stuff like that, it can create bubbles and stuff like that, and it can hurt you. Like nitrogen toxicity and nitroxic. I don't know, anything like that. We're not gonna go too much into that, but it has reduced nitrogen, more oxygen. Air with extra oxygen, often 32 to 36% oxygen compared to normal atmospheric oxygen, which is 21. And then the reduced nitrogen may allow you to, for no stops or shorter decompression stops and shorter surface intervals between dives. So you can wait for the like bubbles to form out of your body. So decompression stops, sometimes you'll have to stop at like 20, 30 feet or something like that. You have to do a short stop there for a few minutes and then you go. Or you can also do no stops if you have, I guess, less nitrogen. And higher oxygen content of nitrox increases the risk of oxygen toxicity. So you might be thinking, oh, it's oxygen. We breathe it all the time. We do not, like normal atmospheric oxygen is 21%. When you go higher and higher, oxygen becomes more toxic. Can you see what it does to metal? I mean, like rusting and stuff like that. Oxygen, one of my chemistry teachers made a joke about how like the most dangerous like element is oxygen because of what it does to things, and he's not technically wrong, but he's not, like it's very misleading. So let's go on to the next type. So next we have trimix, which it's a breathing gas consisting of oxygen, helium, and nitrogen. So we're adding an extra type of gas inside our tank here, and it's mostly used in deep commercial diving. Helium is included as a substitute for some of the nitrogen, so you don't have the effects of the nitrogen on you. Possibly to create mixes suitable for different depths. So you can get rid of more nitrogen and add more helium, or you can just add a little bit of helium and a little bit of nitrogen and oxygen. You can just kind of mix and match whatever you need for how deep you're going to go or how long your dive is going to be. There's a lot more ability to change stuff. The lower proportion of nitrogen is required to reduce nitrogen necrosis. That's what I was talking about, like the bubbles and whatnot. And other psychological effects of the gas at depths. So helium has very little narcotic effects on you, whereas nitrogen has a higher. So the less nitrogen you have in there and the more helium is kind of the better form, but helium also is more expensive. So the lower density of helium reduces breathing resistance at depths, so it's easier to breathe helium than nitrogen. And helium enters and leaves tissue by diffusion more rapidly than nitrogen as the pressure is increased or reduced. So again, just better than nitrogen. Trimix is it's less expensive alternative to Heliox for deep diving because helium is more expensive. Now let's go on to our third type, which is Heliox. There's not as much here because we already talked in the tri mix because about helium. But Heliox is a breathing mixture of just helium and oxygen. So you have very much reduced work breathing because there's no nitrogen, it's just oxygen and helium. You have reduced effects of inert gas necrosis because of the nitrogen. It is used in deep saturation diving and sometimes technical divers. But there is a downside to helium. Helium conducts heat 6 times faster than air, so divers will often carry a separate supply of a different gas to inflate their dry suits. So if you're going that deep down, you're definitely going to want a dry suit. And if you start filling up your Heliox into your dry suit, you will be cooling off so much quicker. You'll be losing so much heat, so they'll carry something like regular oxygen to inflate their dry suits. So that is a one thing that's kind of like bad about Heliox, but if you inflate your dry suit with something else, you kind of counteract that. Ooh, okay. So we have swim fins, or some call them flippers or diving fins. People also use them for snorkeling and stuff like that. Fins are just used to aid movement through the water in water sports, basically any water sport. Now, most of the ones I've used have been made of rubber and plastic. Carbon fiber I haven't really used, or it can be a combination of all of these or just a few of these. So the types we have are long fins, which do not require high frequency leg movement. Basically, you can like hit your legs a couple times, you move a lot faster. And it improves your efficiency underwater and helps minimize the oxygen consumption because if you're moving around a lot, you're losing a lot of oxygen. You're going to use a lot. Then there are short fins, where they're effective in short bursts of acceleration, but you have to use a lot more oxygen. But they are better at maneuvering. So you can move around a lot better, like maneuver, like turns, things like that, but you're going to have to use a lot more oxygen to move farther. And here I just have a picture of long fins, whereas you can guess what short fins would be like because it'd just be like these but shorter. So I didn't think we really needed an extra picture. So yeah, there's a couple different fins. There's also a monofin, which is basically kind of like a mermaid, which I don't see how people use them. But yeah, it's basically both your feet connected to a one fin that you use kind of like a mermaid. So we have also diver propulsion vehicles, or DPV, and they are used by scuba divers to increase their range underwater. I've never used one of these. They seem pretty cool. I don't really know much about them, and I'm not going to pretend like I know much. But basically, it's a little scooter. It's an underwater scooter. So it's got a propeller, it's electric powered, and you just hold on to it, and it just propels you along. You'll use less energy and oxygen because you are not moving, you're just using the electrical energy of the vehicle. So they're pretty cool. Oh, then we have our dive computers or dive watches. So whenever I did my certification, they said you can get a dive watch, and that would be all you'd need, or you can get a dive computer. Now, a dive watch will just give you your depth, basically. It will not give you a lot of other stuff. Dive computers will give you a lot more information about your dive and can help you out a lot, but they are more expensive. Like a dive watch, you can probably get for less than $50 or something like that. Dive computer, you're looking at a couple hundred. So I got a dive computer whenever I was doing my certification. It will measure your time underwater and then also the depth during your dive. And it will use that data to calculate and display an ascent profile. So how fast you need to go up. It can also tell you like when to stop. It can tell you like to slow down when you're ascending. It will tell you how long you're under, how like your maximum depth. It'll tell you all these different stuff. And it'll also have alarms on it that will go off that will like it will flash or beep or maybe vibrate, and it will tell you your no stop limit, so like that you need to stop. It will give you the maximum operating depth for your gas mixture. So if you're using regular oxygen, you're using enriched oxygen, the enriched air, or you're using any of the other stuff, it'll tell you like, oh hey, you can't really go deeper because it's gonna be hard to breathe. And then it will recommend your ascent rate or other limits. They are like wonderful. Like if you don't want to do a ton of work beforehand, figure out what depth, how fast you need to go up, your like all this different stuff, it just saves a lot of time. So, if you just get a dive watch, okay, and you do not get the dive computer, you will need to be looking at this a lot. So this will tell you basically how long you can stay under at certain depths, at like how long you need to stay on the surface to make sure all of the gases get out of your system and whatnot. So I'm not going to go over this completely. I'll give you a short explanation for it, and if you feel like you want to learn more about it, you can go ahead. But this is going to go over a lot of people's heads. It's very confusing if you do not understand it. So let's go ahead and look on here. So if you look here, you have a start depth over here on the left picture. So your start depth, so if you're going to be 35, 40, 50, 60, 70, whatnot, if you're going to be at like 55, then you just go ahead and go to the next depth up. You don't go down because that could kill you. But you'll just go up. You'll just like, it's kind of like whenever you see a 0.5, you just round up. So if we're going to do a real easy dive, let's say we're going to go to 40 feet, okay? So we go to our starting depth. Now, each of the numbers in these blue and white lines here is how many minutes you're going to be down. So if you're going to go at 40 feet for, let's say, 31 minutes, okay, that will put you at the F mark here. So then, yeah, so that's how long you're going to be over. You can move over to the right and just follow that line and go to F, and then there's also an F on the bottom. If you just follow it over, that'll tell you how long you need to stay on the surface. You have to stay at the surface for, I guess, 7 minutes before you can go down again, or you should go down again. Now, if you're going to go for a second dive, then you'll need to flip over the card. So this second picture here is our returning dive thing. So if you are going to be going on a second dive, you will have to use this back half. And you can go at the depth, kind of right there. You see the depth in feet. You can go to 35, 40. Let's say we're just going to go to 35 feet there. You can move over to your pressure group, which our pressure group was F. Yeah. So you just go to 35, go over to F, and that will basically tell you how long you can stay under and whatnot. I'm not going to go into any more of that. But also, if you were to be like, hey, how long can I stay under at a max depth of 40? So let's say you have a couple tanks of oxygen and you can stay under, like there's no limit to the oxygen. It's just the limit of how long you're supposed to stay underwater, like how long's the max you can stay. So if it's 40 feet, you can realistically, or I guess theoretically, stay under for 140 minutes, as long as your oxygen holds out. That's the black box here at the very bottom. So let's say you wanted to go to 140 feet, which that is like way farther than I would even think to go. That's like the max they have here. 8 minutes. So yeah, this is kind of confusing. I'm not going to promise that everything I said was completely correct because I don't really use the dive tables that much. I would have to look at them pretty long to figure it out. But that's kind of a general idea of how they're used. I use my dive computer. So yeah, if you're more interested in that, you can look up how to calculate everything. And if you are going to be doing the certification, you will have to use this starting out. You'll have to know how to use it. Will you have to use it every single time you dive? If you have a dive computer, not really. So, next thing, hand signals. So I can't really use my hands with this program, but we have our hand signals here. So first off, so the yellow kind of background one, these are more general, uh, I guess, hand signals. Now, the second one for the patty, they are, a lot of them aren't as needed, like they're more specialized or whatnot, if you want to talk underwater. But they're still good to know. So, we have just a regular hand up is stop. If you kind of like tilt your hand back and forth, it's something wrong. The OK symbol, okay, that is something that is super, super important, okay? Just know that OK you're going to be using a lot, okay? Every single time I dive, usually they will like do the OK symbol to you. If you are OK, give the OK symbol back, okay? Nothing else has to be done. Now, if you do a thumbs up, okay, thumbs up is not OK, okay? Thumbs up means go up, and that means you're going to the surface. And if you do that, they're going to think something's wrong. There's also the thumbs down, which is go down. If you tilt your hand back and forth with the thumb, that's which way. Two index fingers together, buddy up. If you point, follow me kind of thing. There's all these different ones. If you are interested in these, you can go look at them. There's a lot more hand signals you can use. But the most other ones that we need to use is out of air, which is basically you just like cut your throat kind of thing with your hand. Just go back and forth. The I need air, which is you basically take your hand to your regulator and pretend like you're taking it off and just keep doing that. The shivering one. Okay, you stick your hands in like an X over your chest. That means you're cold. That's one I use. So basically, okay, something's wrong. Like to go up or go down, you need to know not to use those unless you actually need to. The out of air or I need air. The help on the surface and okay on the surface, those are kind of important ones. Cold, if you're like me, cold is a good one. A lot of the other ones aren't used as much. I haven't used most of these. But yeah, there's tons of like signals and stuff like that. I will have to look at these before I go on my next dive just to get a refresher since I only go like once a year. So let's move on. So we have decompression sickness. So decompression sickness is one of the things that divers worry about the most whenever you are diving. So whenever I was talking about like breathing and stuff like that. So whenever you're underwater, you need to ascend at a certain rate, or you do not get the bubbles out of your system, like the bubbles of the air, the gases that you've been breathing, like the nitrogen and stuff like that. So, decompression sickness is also known as the diver's disease, or I hear it mostly called the bends. So the bends is what I've been like told most of the time. It's a medical condition caused by the dissolved gases which emerge from solution as bubbles inside your body tissue during decompression. So as you go down, you don't have to worry with it as much, but as you're coming up, all the air that you've been taking in has been compressed. So as you're going up, everything is decompressing and trying to get out. So commonly occurs during or soon after decompression ascent. So while you're ascending is whenever this will kind to come up, and also when you're at the surface. So like even though you get to the surface, does not mean you are completely out of the woods, but it mostly happens during ascent. So the effects vary from possibly joint pains and rashes to it can go to as bad as paralysis and death, because those air bubbles can go like lots of different places. There's dissolved gases. It's important to ascend gradually and not super fast at all, and then also make a decompression stop. So decompression stops and ascent, there are recommended limits. So usually the recommended ascent is 10 meters or 33 feet per minute, which if you have a dive computer, it will beep at you if you're going too fast or whatnot, but you just have to pay attention. So if you don't have a dive computer, or you're looking at your dive watch or your pressure gauge, then you can tell like how far you are and stuff like that, and you can tell if how fast you are. I guess you'll have to count. Then usually a scheduled or a short safety stop or decompression stop is at 3 to 6 meters, which is 10 to 20 feet. But you can stop like basically as much as you want. If you want to be super, super safe, you can stop every 10 feet if you want to and look around, and then go up another 10 feet and just go up. And make sure to equalize as you're going up, because you don't want your ears to be popping and stuff like that. Because as you're going down, if you do not equalize your ears or whatever, you go up a few feet, try again, and if you can't equalize, you just keep going up till you equalize, then you can start going down again. Because it gets very, very, very uncomfortable and also can bust your eardrums. So, like, don't just say, oh, I got this. Worry about it. So, depth range. So, you can't just go straight down to the bottom of the ocean, of course. Depth range is important because it tells you how far you can go under safely at your like level of experience, I guess. So, recreational diver certificate limits to about 130 feet or 40 meters. So, like, if you're not professional, you are recreational. And you probably will not go below 130 feet. Entry level, like the open water dive certificate that I have, is 60 feet or 18 meters to, I guess, 20 meters to 66 feet. So you can go, I guess, at a max of 66, but like mine says like about 60. Now, I went to Mexico and dived, and they took us down to like 70 or 72 feet, and that's the lowest I've been. Now, I would not go much deeper than that, but it's Mexico, I guess. Less laws and jurisdiction. Now, here's the thing, like professional diving, okay? So the depth limits are depth, not death. The depth limits are depend on jurisdiction. So kind of like I was saying there about like scuba diving in Mexico, the jurisdiction and whatnot, it's a little bit more lenient. But professional, your limits depend on jurisdiction, breathing gas used, and also the availability of a decompression chamber nearby on site. So, if you are somewhere with more lenient laws, you can go deeper as long as you're using gas like heliox, where the breathing is pretty easy as far as you go down. Then you can, I guess, go deeper. Also, a decompression chamber. So just in case you do have decompression sickness, a decompression chamber can be used to help you out and make sure you do not get even more hurt. We won't go into a decompression chamber or anything like that. Just know it's a thing. There's also sometimes people will go back underwater to do a decompression stop to let more gases get out of their system, and that's a little less used, but also they'll give you pure oxygen wherever you're at the surface sometimes. And yeah, there's a few different things, but I did not look into them 100% because this video is already getting super long. So the maximum depth allowed ranges from 30 meters, which is 100 feet, to more than 50 meters, which is 160 feet. Now, there are programs that go even deeper than that, but that's like most people would not go deeper than like 60 feet. But then all the rest of them, most of them will not go more than 160. There are some people that will go even deeper. So, as you can see here, there are programs that trained divers that can train divers for 120 meters, which is 390 feet. So I'm guessing those are probably wreck or rescue divers or something like that. Would probably go deeper, but most people will never do that unless you're very, 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 very highly qualified. So, if you take anything from my video, I think this is the most important slide. So, these are important information for scuba diving or whatever if you're going to just be a starting out diver, or stuff to remember for even any diver that comes to this video. So, first of all, never hold your breath, okay? So, you need to basically be continuous breathing. Now, if you, like when you're ascending, definitely never hold your breath, okay? Because the compressed air is going to decompress in your lungs as you come up. So it will hurt your lungs. So whenever you're especially ascending, but always just do not hold your breath. And I'm not saying like, oh, just be continuously breathing, hyperventilating. No, you can like just take in a breath, hold it for a second, and then let it out like normal. But just do not hold it for like as long as you can or something like that. That'll hurt you. It'll damage your lungs. And then also ascend slowly. So like I said, these gases that you're going to be breathing are pressurized and compressed as you're underwater, and as you come up, they will decompress. And the faster you go up, the faster they will decompress. So that will give time for the gases to come out of your tissues and stuff like that as you ascend slowly, and also do safety stops. Next thing, stay close to your buddy. Whenever you dive, you do not want to dive alone, just in case something wrong happens, like something bad. So you always want to go with a dive buddy. My dive buddy, whenever I go, is my dad because he did the certification with me. And whenever we go down, you stay next to each other, and if something happens, like let's say you run out of oxygen, and they can hand you their spare regulator, or if you get stuck on something, or let's say your mask comes off, or anything else happens, they can be there to help you. So stay close to your buddy and just like be safe. Pre-dive safety checklist. So before you even get underwater, whenever you are putting together your equipment and stuff like that, uh, there's a checklist. So basically, what I do is some of the most important things. Make sure your BCD will inflate and deflate. Make sure your weights are attached and hooked on. Make sure all the releases work, like all the buttons and zippers and like all the stuff like that. Make sure that your air works. So breathe in and breathe out through your regulator of your regulator, and then also your spare one, because if you went down underwater and your spare one didn't work and your buddy was needing oxygen and then it doesn't work, you screwed your buddy. So make sure all your air works. Make sure it tastes all right. Like there's a certain like taste or smell to your air. If it's weird, it's different, you might want to change. All those different things. There's other things, but that's the main ones. Just make sure you can breathe and your BCD works and your weights and releases are good. Just make sure everything is perfectly fine and check your safety list. Watch your air. So do not run your air completely empty, because who knows what's going to happen. So keep watching your air. Make sure that you have enough to get to the surface from where you are. Make sure you have a good amount extra just in case something was to happen, because who knows if you're going to get an air leak or something like that. If your air starts leaking while you're like, oh, I have another like 10 minutes left, and then your air starts leaking, and then all of a sudden you have 5 minutes left. You don't want to be super far down and have to make a no stop run or ascend super fast and risk decompression sickness. So make sure you have a good amount of oxygen saved. Then also equalize often. So equalize your mask so it's not squeezing your face and causing your like face to squeeze and your eyes to bulge, just like that. Make sure you equalize that, and equalize your ears, because you don't want to bust your eardrums. You also do not want to feel very uncomfortable underwater as your ears are hurting the whole time. Kind of like if you go up a mountain, like your ears feel very uncomfortable. That's because you're going up in the atmosphere, kind of like you're going up. This time you're going down. Still, you're getting different atmospheres on top of you. So equalize often. Those are my main important like scuba diving tip kind of things. This is most people's tips. But just stay safe and just understand that it's not very forgiving, okay? Kind of like any other thing you're doing, there are limits and there are also safety things you need to pay attention to. This, like I said, is a bare bones thing from like an entry level diver that has had his certification for. I've had it for a few years now. I can't remember exactly, but I'm not in any way a professional or anything like that. So if you want professional stuff, go to a professional. But this, if you're thinking about getting into scuba diving or stuff like that, if this helps you out, I'm glad. This will tell you kind of how the equipment works, or at least the names of the equipment, and give you some idea of how to use everything. So, yeah. Hope you enjoyed. This was a pretty fun educational video to make. This is probably one of my longer videos, and I've got a longer one even coming. But sometime in the future, I might do another scuba diving video, because this is, like I said, bare bones, top of the iceberg stuff that if you like Googled or something like that, you could figure this stuff out. There are stuff like wreck diving and rescue diving and stuff like that that I do not know anything about, that I would have to look into a lot before I feel all right saying it all to you. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this educational video. I hope you like. If this gets you into scuba diving, leave a comment or something like that. I'm fine with answering comments about like any questions you have, so like that, if I can answer them, or I can possibly tell you a place where you could find information on it. Yeah. Hope you enjoyed. I do not know for sure which video I'm going to be presenting next. Right now, I've got most of the stuff I wanted to get done before I go scuba diving with the whale sharks. Uh, so mostly I just wanted to get the scuba diving done, and then a whale sharks video, and then possibly doing a video on the aquarium that I'm going to be scuba diving with the whale sharks. But I don't know for sure if I'll be able to find enough information to make a full video on it that is substantial like this one. So possibly one of those. If not, we'll see what we get into. Anyways, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next educational video. So, bye!